It's The Morning Show.
With Peter White.
So don't forget to check out The Morning Show every weekday, 7 to 9 a.m.
That's it.
That's it?
That's a good one.
Join me, Matt Connarton, weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. live for a discussion about politics where we put aside labels like liberal and conservative and have a discussion about truth and what's really happening in the world.
This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNHLP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA.
On top of other tensions, now China is warning its citizens about traveling to the U.S. On Tuesday, Beijing issued 2 separate travel advisories for the U.S. that are valid until the end of the year. According to Chinese state media, the country's foreign ministry said American law enforcement agencies have repeatedly used methods like immigration checks and on-site interviews to harass Chinese citizens. And it urged Chinese nationals and Chinese-funded institutions in the U.S. to raise their security awareness. In a separate advisory, China's Ministry of Culture and Tourism warned Chinese tourists to fully evaluate the risks of traveling to the U.S. in light of frequent shootings, robberies, and thefts. The advisories were issued the day after China's Education Ministry warned students and academics about risks associated with studying in the U.S. But advisories like these aren't exactly unprecedented. Last year, China's foreign ministry and embassy in Washington issued similar warnings as tensions over trade continued to mount. Relations between China and the U.S. have soured in recent months, thanks to an ongoing trade war, tension over the disputed South China Sea, and U.S. sanctions on Chinese tech giant Huawei.
look at the world and I see that he's bombing while my bizarre president tweets. I look at them all and they need some impeaching. Still my bizarre president tweets. I don't know how he got elected. No one protected me. I'm sure that no Putin controls you. He bought and sold you. I look at the news and I notice he's fuming while my bizarre president tweets. He makes one mistake, we could all end up burning. Still my bizarre president tweets. I don't know how we got diverted. That guy's perverted too. His fans have got their facts inverted. Fox News converted them. She looked at that Trump and she knew he needs spanking. While my bizarre president tweets. Look at them all, how they all need some jail time. Still my bizarre president tweets.
This is a system.
Auto sequence starts.
Everybody, welcome. It's that time again. Matt Connarton, Unleashed in the Afternoon. We're live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 in Manchester. Streaming at WMNHradio.org and on Facebook via Facebook Live. on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Today is Tuesday, June 4th, the year of our Lord, 2019. 603-250-6007 is the number to call. 603-250-6007. And, or, of course, you can always interact in the Facebook live chat as well. I see Michael Alber in there. He says, Matt Connarton, I heard you on The Planet this weekend while I was up north. That's a station that I do a different show on. Thank you, Michael. I'm glad you heard that. He also said that is an old MacBook, referring to this machine right here. Does Facebook even work on it? Yes, it does. Actually, this MacBook, this is an older MacBook. That's why this is the one that I, bring around with me everywhere, because it is old. I don't mind if it gets a little bit beaten up, with a lot of traveling. So I bring it here and I plug it in here, and I have usually have some audio on here that I might play during the show. But it runs like a dream. When I got it, I got this one used online for a very low price, and it works like it's brand new, so it's great. MacBooks are they're like Toyotas. If you take care of them, they go forever. Hello to Fred Boenig in the Facebook live chat. Fred Boenig, of course, from the Daily Ripple, and hello to Rocky Huber in there as well. Hello, gentlemen. I say gentlemen not to be sexist. It's just so far it's a bit of a sausage party. Where are the ladies at? We need a little bit of estrogen in here, if you know what I mean. Not that I don't appreciate you fine gentlemen. I certainly do. Let's see. And I did make a post earlier on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page, by the way, about announcing the musical that Paul Cormier and I are working on together. It's called Goldenrod, the Musical. And I look forward to, if we hear from EZG, Eric Gagnon, today, I look forward to talking with him about it. Perhaps he'll have some suggestions. He's in that industry, so to speak. Not in terms of musicals, but just, he works in the food service industry. So he might have some thoughts. But plus, maybe Paul Cormier will call, and I can talk to him about it, because I actually I haven't told Paul yet that we're going to be working on that together. So, bit of a surprise for him. I don't know if he even likes musicals, but he did sing with me yesterday, and it was great. And I just thought, this is a guy who I can work with. You know what I mean? So, we'll see about that. So, much going on. By the way, I was listening to a bit of the replay of the morning show, and they were speculating about whether Skumpi will be returning tomorrow. So that was interesting. So we'll ask him if he calls today, if he calls this program. Let's see. Well, we should probably dive into some stuff, because there is a lot. Oh, actually, Michael Alber says in the Facebook live chat, I got an iMac with a Core Duo from Savers for $50, but it won't run a browser that will run Facebook or YouTube. But I've put Linux on it. And Michael says, Goldenrod, the musical, with music by Alan Menken. That name is so familiar. Who's Alan Menken, Michael? I feel like I should know who that is, and when you tell me who that is, I'll be like, oh, yeah, duh. And I'll feel quite foolish that I didn't recognize the name immediately. I suppose I could Google it. But Alan Menken, why is that name so familiar to me? It'll all make sense in a moment. Let's. I want to talk some. We got this whole trade war thing going, and I want to get into that. But first, I do have some shocking news, my friends. I think we're all, not all of us clearly, but I think a lot of us are really sick of talking about Hillary Clinton. Now that we're well into the. Alan Menken has done the music for several musicals like Little Shop of Horrors and Newsies. Oh, I wonder if he'd work with us. Oh, and Fred Boenig just shared a link in the Facebook live chat to Alan Menken's website, apparently. All right, very nice. There's Alan Menken. He looks like a gentleman who would write musicals, yes. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on Hillary. I complain about so many people on the right wanting to still talk about Hillary to this day. But we know she's not going away if for no other reason than, obviously, in the coming months, Trump will be doing campaign rallies where he will lead auditoriums and stadiums even full of his acolytes in chance of lock her up. And I think that he'll be spending a lot of the 2020 election cycle actually running against Hillary Clinton again, even though she's not a candidate. And then I saw this on my favorite website, and hopefully yours, rightwingwatch.org. Dave Daubenmire, whom we have featured on the program many times, he does a show called Pass the Salt. What does that mean? Is that a biblical reference? Pass the salt? I don't know. You don't want too much salt. It's you shouldn't eat foods that are high in sodium. It raises your blood pressure or something. But I mean, doesn't the Lord want you to have healthy blood pressure? But let's see. Daubenmire says he wants Hillary Clinton sent to prison so she can be taught to fear God. Oh, my goodness. Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm very curious because maybe this is why the right wing just won't let go of Hillary. They just can't seem to quit her. They just won't let go of Hillary because apparently they want her sent to prison so she will be taught to fear God, and that will teach her a lesson. So I saw this on Right Wing Watch, and even though, and yes, I'll freely admit this is incredibly hypocritical of me because I sit here and I complain about, I'll be saying something critical of Trump, and then one of my Republican friends will call the show and do the typical, butter emails, or what about Benghazi? And it's like, yeah, what about them? I'm talking about Trump. I don't care about Hillary. She's not a candidate. So this is incredibly hypocritical of me, and I'm probably encouraging bad behavior. But I have to admit, my friends, I am fascinated by this idea, this concept that Dave Daubenmire has presented, that Hillary Clinton must be sent to prison so that she will be taught to fear God. It's for her own good, for her own salvation. So let's listen to this. I am genuinely curious, and I hope you are too. It's a short clip.
Targeting imprecatory psalms towards her, towards what? Listen, folks, I want Hillary saved. You think Hillary's going to get saved sitting there in Chappaqua? You think that? You say, well, Coach, the Lord can move in miraculous ways. Yeah, he can. But were you saved in good times or bad times? And if you really love Hillary, then you ought to be praying that she comes under judgment now so she escapes judgment later. I want Hillary Clinton saved. All right? But I'm not going to go to her house and read the Bible out loud to her. I'm just not going to do that. I want her, dare I say it, I want her in her kimono dress. I want her perp walked. I want her to go to jail and everything she has be taken from her and then cry out to Christ. That's what I want for Hillary Clinton. Why does that seem harsh and unloving?
Well, it does seem a bit harsh.
That's the kind of thing. She has to be taught to fear God. She's not going to come to Jesus unless she fears God.
All right. Well, there you go. So he's just trying to save Hillary. I think that's nice. All right. Let's see. Fred. I'm sorry. Michael says, sometimes these oh, here we go. Michael said, I do not want to know how you go from being... so weird when it does. Facebook is being a little glitchy with me. I apologize, everybody. So I've got messages showing up on one screen and not on the other. So let's see. Michael writes, I'm looking over here at this screen now because, of course, if you're just listening in your car, none of this matters. But I do not want to know how you go from being a mayor of a medium-sized town to deciding you're going to run for president. Could you see Mayor Craig run for president? Well, no, certainly not at the moment. And then he says, did you see Trump talk about Buttigieg? It's always personal with him, not about the substance of the issues. He talks about his opponents like them being a personal threat. I can take him, don't worry, Trump said. Yes, well, he also recently called Buttigieg Alfred E. Newman. I had shared out something earlier on Facebook here. Before we get to the trade war stuff, let's hit this because you brought this up, Michael.
London Mayor, this is from Mediaite, London Mayor Sadiq Khan dismisses Trump's childish insults and says, quote, it's the sort of hate I'd expect from an 11-year-old. Now, of course, the problem with that is Khan is giving Trump a bit too much credit there in a way, because I think that your typical 11-year-old could probably come up with more creative insults than the kind of thing Trump comes up with, calling someone a total loser. And, you know, Trump's insults are very repetitive. He's not very creative with his insults, really. Yeah, it says here, London Mayor Sadiq Khan continued his feud with Donald Trump today with a series of TV interviews in which he shrugged off the president's personal insults after calling Trump a poster boy for the far right in a conversation with the BBC. Khan spoke to CNN's Clarissa Ward and defended his recent editorial comparing the president to 20th century autocrats. He proceeded to rip Trump on numerous fronts, saying the president is viewed as a champion to, quote, people whose views I find abhorrent and views are the complete opposite of our values in this country, unquote. The mutual dislike between Trump and Khan has been well established for some time, but the former set the tone of his state visit to the UK by lobbing personal insults at the latter on Twitter. When asked about those, Khan responded that it was, quote, the sort of hate I'd expect from an 11-year-old, but it's for him to decide how he behaves. It's beneath me to do childish tweets and name-calling, unquote. Yep. Let's see. There's actually... Should we play this as some audio I can share with you from CNN about this? Because let's see. Let's see how long this clip is. That's short.
And that is the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. So tell us what he told you.
Well, it was interesting, Alison. I mean, I started out by pressing him on the issue of why Mayor Sadiq Khan decided to write this editorial for The Observer in which he compared President Donald Trump to some of the worst fascist leaders of the 20th century. I wanted to get a sense from him of whether he felt that was appropriate or potentially even counterproductive. Let's take a listen.
Even in my own country and in America, dare I say it, you've got people whose views I find abhorrent, whose views are the complete opposite of our values in this country, who, you know, see Donald Trump as their champion. I think it's wrong, for example, to defend white supremacists and neo-Nazis and, you know, those who are anti-Semites. I think it's wrong to amplify the tweets from racists in this country as Donald Trump has done so. I think it's wrong, by the way, to separate children from their parents on a border. I think it's wrong to ban people from coming to your country because of the faith they belong to. I think it's wrong to roll back the progress that's been made on the reproductive rights of women or LGBT plus rights.
I went on also to ask him about what his reaction was when he first read that tweet as President Trump landing here in the UK, the beginning of a major 3-day state visit. I asked him what his reaction was. Take a listen to what he said.
You know, that's the sort of behaviour I'd expect from an 11-year-old, you know, but look, it's for him to decide how he behaves. It's not for me to respond in a like manner. I think it's, you know, beneath me to do childish tweets and name-calling.
Were you surprised? Were you offended?
Not offended in the slightest. People tell me nothing this president does should surprise you.
Ain't that true?
And so there you have it, essentially. Mayor Sadiq Khan not backing away from any of his comments. He went on to also say that he thinks that President Donald Trump has become the poster boy.
Oh, that's the end of the clip. Okay. Let's see. So there you have it. Michael Alber referring to the, he says rubber. Oh, and 11-year-olds all know about the I'm rubber, you're glue. Yes. Yes. Maybe at some point Trump will pull that one out. You know, I can imagine Trump versus Biden in a debate, and Trump does the I'm rubber, you're glue with Joe Biden. That'd be exciting. Hello to Derek Relaford, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. All right, we got to get into this trade war stuff, but I mean, we can talk about anything at 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. But I do want to go through. There's a great article on Reason.com. Trump's trade war turns 1. Here's what we've lost. Even if Trump's tariffs go away, the debilitating economic effects are likely to linger for voters. Trump's tariffs on Mexican imports would be the biggest tax increase in decades. And that refers to, of course, Trump is, and, we'll get into that specifically in a minute, but Trump is threatening, what is it, a 10% tariff, I think was the last thing that he said, on Mexico if they don't do something on their side about illegal immigration. I thought we were already building this great big wall that was going to fix all that. What happened there, big guy? Let's see. And, and a tariff is effectively a tax on Americans, because a tariff on anything coming into the country naturally raises the price. And that is why the Republican Party, for decades, I believe, was the party of free trade. Free trade is a good thing, free market economics. And then Trump came along and said, no, we're protectionists now. We're the party of protectionism, and we love tariffs. And the entire Republican Party kind of shrugged and said, okay, now we love tariffs. We're protectionists. Because what daddy says goes, effectively. Now, Trump is getting pushback, and we'll get into all that on this Mexico thing. Apparently, this is a bit too far for most Republicans, and there's a chance they're going to, we'll get into the details of it, but eventually they'll all fold, because what Trump says goes. I mean, they'll all cave in, ultimately. Oh, we have a call. Let's grab this. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, Matt, Skumpi.
Jeff Skumpi Lorenz, how are you? Haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, I know. I'm listening, talking about Trump. Of course, I've always said his tweets, come on, give me a break. He is like an 11-year-old and stuff. But you talk about the tariffs and all that. When the Democrats were in there, they were, all the trade stuff, they were lining their own pockets with the corporate stuff. They were letting all the businesses go to the other countries, but the people making the money were, the politicians and the high corporate people. If you look right now, since 1969, there's never been a better unemployment. I mean, since 1969, there's jobs everywhere. If someone wants to work, they can make money.
Oh, I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that the economy. I'm not arguing that the economy isn't good. No, the economy.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
The economy's very good overall. But that doesn't mean that Trump isn't doing something very specific with this trade war. What he's doing, but he is. He's lining the pockets. He's putting the jobs back in America and lining the pockets of the American people. With this trade war?
Well, yeah. Well, look at all the jobs they're taking away from all these. Well, I don't know about the trade war. Yeah, I mean, of course, Mexico. It's always been a thing, but. I don't know. You get the liberals; they want the illegal aliens in so they can get votes to get Trump out of there, and that's so they can line their pockets again. That's how I feel. I don't know.
Well, I think both parties are pretty good at lining their pockets, but so I wouldn't make that. I wouldn't be too quick to make that a partisan thing. I'm not going to defend the Democrats, but everybody lines their pockets. I mean, that's kind of how the game is played. Politics. At that level as a business, but it's really hard to find even an economist who will tell you that this whole trade policy of Trump's makes any sense at all.
I don't know. I know. I don't know. I like it. I love what Trump's doing. The jobs. Go online anywhere to find a job. There's millions of them out there. You want to work, you got a job.
I'm not arguing.
More people paying taxes. More people,
I'm not arguing that. The economy's great. But, but let's not say, okay, the economy's great, so we can do this thing that's actually doing more harm than good. Maybe the economy would be even better if we didn't have this ridiculous tariff policy. I can't find anybody who can explain to me why this part of what Trump is doing is a good idea. I mean, even the Republicans in Congress, Republicans and Democrats, I think, generally agree that this is bad policy in Congress. But, of course, the Republicans just roll over for whatever Trump says. So, in the end, it doesn't matter. Chuck Grassley from Iowa puts up a little bit of a fight, but ultimately he caves, just like the rest of them. Right now, Rand Paul is trying to fight this, but he'll cave. I mean, they all cave.
I was a Democrat for years and years and years until Trump got elected, and I just can't believe how how the liberals are just like, no matter what it is, it's Trump's fault. Let's impeach him. No matter what it is.
Well,
I don't. My ankle, it's Trump's fault.
I don't. I don't.
It's crazy.
I think it's because Trump committed 11 separate counts of obstruction of justice that they want to impeach him. If you've read the Mueller report.
Yeah, but what about Hillary though? Come on, she should have been in prison a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's old news, but.
It is. I don't know. I don't want to argue about it. You know how we are. We love each other, and
of course,
politics is politics. But I don't know. Things are good. Things are pretty damn good.
Overall, things are, but I think this tariff policy is disastrous. Right? If you don't mind paying more for stuff, good on you. I guess. I mean, I guess if you're making money, then you don't care. But I don't know what.
Well, another big thing is sports. Why are these athletes making so much damn money? That all falls back on the regular people too. They get billion-dollar contracts. It's crazy. It's crazy. That all falls back for the corporate, the networks, the commercials, all that stuff. It's crazy. When's it going to stop?
Well, I mean, but what's your solution to that? I mean, that's one of those.
What is the solution?
That's one of those.
If you tell every athlete the most you can make is $5 million if you're real good.
Yeah.
You think they're going to say, okay, I'm going to go I'll just go work at a store or warehouse or something, or I'll get a carpenter job. They're still going to take the $5 million a year. Are you kidding me?
Oh, I don't disagree, but what's the solution? I mean, do you want the government to make a law about it, or what? Like, what do you have in mind?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. You can't. That's just like the corporations. Like these guys make the big, huge dough. I mean, if someone's going to pay you, what are you going to do? I mean, man, if someone's going to pay you to do that radio show, someone else is going to pay you instead of WMNH. Someone's going to pay you, $100,000 a year. What are you going to do?
Oh, I agree. Well, that's why I never complain about the athletes making all that money. I mean, that's one of those life isn't fair problems that you just can't. There is no solution to that. It's just how it is.
There isn't, but it is out of control, though. Don't you agree it's out of control?
I don't
begrudge. Actors and entertainers make more money. I mean, they could feed the whole world with the money they make and have plenty left over.
I don't disagree with you. I just don't know how you fix that unless you're going to legislate it somehow. Which some people actually would do.
But then you become a socialist because now you're saying, you can only make this much.
Right.
And these people work hard and they work,
Yeah.
Okay. No, I know you're great, but you're only getting this much.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no solution.
Right, yeah. Will you be on the morning show tomorrow, Skumpi? I heard some speculation about whether or not you would be there.
I will be there. I have a new game, too, tomorrow. So, I will be there tomorrow morning.
Very nice. Very nice. Good. So you're feeling better?
Oh, I'm feeling better. I had a thing, Terry Trainer from Narrow Street Films called me and he says, hey, need you Saturday morning. We're doing a bunch of comedy skits. We got a film. I'd love to have you involved. And I work every other Saturday. Sorry, I can't make it this Saturday.
Oh.
It's up in Maine too, but I really wanted to. I love doing that stuff. It's just so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, any news on your acting, your film work?
No, not too much. I mean, I'm still waiting for the Amazon Prime to pick up Chance and a Dinner Party. I don't know. I'm still working on it, but
we're looking forward to
be on there pretty soon.
Looking forward to watching those. Yeah, absolutely. And what about DEF CON? What do you have coming up? Did that show in Concord already go by?
We just did Panucci's last week or the week before. Now we're doing. Our next stop is.
I remember the Panucci show. I was there.
Oh, that's right. You were. There was another guy that wasn't. But anyways, let's not talk about that.
Right. Yes. Let's not open.
But anyway,
recent wounds.
Next stop is Concord, Pitt Road, and it's the end of Motorcycle Weekend. It's June 15th, and it's right on Loudon Road. So it's in Concord.
Yep.
And it should be a huge show there. Should be a huge show.
Do you expect it to be a barn burner?
Oh yeah, and we got and we're throwing about 4 originals in now too.
Oh, very nice, very good. Do you have anything recorded yet for originals?
What's that?
Do you have anything recorded yet for your originals?
No, we haven't recorded them, but we got them down. We'll get them all down, and then we'll go in the studio and record everything and make it like fantastic. And actually, it's fantastic live. Actually, it's the best way to hear it. But
yeah,
you know, you go in the studio, and I don't know. I like just playing it live. It just sounds so cool. It's raw. It's nice.
Well, I just because I want to. If you have something recorded, I want to be able to give it a world radio premiere right here on Matt Connarton Unleashed. Maybe we can even get Peter White to play some of it.
You know what, Matt? I'll do that for you too, because I gave Peter. There's a DEF CON CD, an old one back from the '80s that I did.
Yes.
In that studio somewhere, and he's only played like a half a song one time. So I don't know. I love Peter, but anyway,
he only played a half a song.
Here we go again. Putting him under the bus. I'm going to hear it again tomorrow.
No. I mean, you're not complaining. You're just making an observation that he only played a half a song.
That's all.
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean,
observation. That's all it is.
I'm sure the half he played was probably the best part, right? Like the best half. He probably was like.
It'd be great.
He probably
it'd be
thought,
great if either one of you. But if he gave you the CD, it'd be great if you played a song once in a while. It'd be awesome.
He probably
just once in a while. It'd be cool.
He probably thought, Skumpi, this half here is so strong that I want to feature Skumpi's music in the best possible light. So I'm going to play this specific half of the song for Skumpi.
Well, he actually lost the CD for a long time, and oh boy,
He lost. Oh my goodness, he lost the CD. Well, that's
and I'm down to like 2 left. I got to record more of them because
you only have 2 left.
I keep giving them out, and oh boy.
So did you have to give him a second one?
No.
He has
it there somewhere. He can tell you where it is.
Oh,
maybe you can play some. Ask him about it.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him. Maybe he can. Unearth it. I don't know where it could be. I don't know.
Oh, this is way back too. This is like in 88, 89, and all original stuff. There's probably 6 songs on there. They're all good songs.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'd love to hear it. Maybe I can find the CD.
You probably can. But anyway, I gotta rehearse. I'm heading into the jam room now.
All right,
I just thought I'd call on the way down. I was gonna stop in, but I was running a little late, so I said I can't stop in for a full hour. So
right,
I gotta go up and actually work on some music. I'm writing some other stuff now. So
very nice.
I'm heading in and I'm gonna work on some lyrics and a little bit of guitar work.
All right, excellent. All right, well, have fun. Thank you for the call, Skumpi.
All right, peace.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, the great Jeff Skumpi Lorenz and his band DEF CON. What did he say? June 15th, I think they're going to be at the Pit Road Lounge up in Concord, or Concordiansville, as my grandfather used to call it. Let's see. Archie Frangudis joins us in the Facebook live chat. Archie says, the Mexican tarring may cost some, but it is a scintilla versus the cost to the American taxpayer. Mexican tarring may cost some. I'm not sure what you mean, Archie, with that exactly. I mean, are you saying that because it's going to cost the American taxpayer more for goods coming from Mexico? Is that what you mean? Hello to Wayne Noel, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Michael Albert says, most corrupt president since Nixon. That, my friend, deserves an air horn. Let's see. Dr. Jeff Cassell joins us in the Facebook live chat. Hello, Jeff. Frank Potato from the Jinxed, the great band The Jinxed, joins us. Michael Albert says, everything we buy is made somewhere else. Tariffs only hurt the U.S. consumer and slow down the economy. We'll see the repercussions after the election and have 4 years of recession. Well, hopefully not, but I fear that you may be correct. And, we're overdue for a recession anyway, to be quite honest with you. And I'm not hoping for that, certainly. But the economy does go in cycles, and we are overdue. So we started with this. So this is, this is from Reason.com. Trump's trade war turns 1. Here's what we've lost. So I touched on the first bullet point here, and then we'll get into the article a little bit. Trump's tariffs on Mexican imports would be the biggest tax increase in decades. Trump's tariffs hurt American businesses and consumers. Trump's tariffs keep harming America. Trump's tariffs cost the U.S. economy $1.4 billion every month. And again, I mean, to Skumpi's point, yeah, the economy appears to be good overall. And yes, I mean, unemployment is rock bottom. In fact, here in New Hampshire, I think it's probably too low because we have a real labor shortage here. A lot of businesses are struggling in the sense that they can't find enough help. I notice that particularly with people I talk to in the food industry. A lot of restaurants around here, we have a lot of restaurants in this city, and a lot of them can't find enough help. But let's get into this a little bit. And again, I mean, this isn't to contradict what Skumpi was saying. Skumpi's broader point that the economy is very good, I don't disagree with that. I don't dispute that. But, something can be very good, but you can still do things to harm it. Doesn't mean that it's not still very good, but it could be potentially even better if you don't do things. It's like your health, for example. Let's say you're a healthy person, but you decide to take up smoking. Well, it's going to take a while before smoking cigarettes begins to take a toll on you physically. There's a lot of things like lung cancer and emphysema and other things that smoking can do to you that's very, very bad. But you might go years, maybe even decades before you feel the effects of it. Doesn't mean that you're not in good health overall. If you feel good, you got plenty of energy, you don't have any sort of illnesses, anything chronic going on, great, you feel good. Nobody's saying you're not healthy, but you're still doing something to yourself by smoking those cigarettes that eventually is going to catch up on you and is going to affect your health in some way. That's not a bad analogy I came up with. I'm usually really bad at analogies. I'm kind of proud of that one. So that's like, I'm going to give myself an air horn. I almost don't like to do that for myself. It feels masturbatory somehow, but yeah. So that's like the economy with the tariffs. If the economy is great, yeah, that's great. But Trump is actively doing something with these tariffs that, again, I'm hard pressed to find anybody who will say this is bad and we shouldn't be doing this. Okay, Archie posted a clarification. The tremendous cost to the American people regarding the support of illegals is only one facet. Well, that's an issue where you and I absolutely disagree, Archie. More people in the country are contributing to the American tax base. Plus, I don't use the term illegal. I refer to them as undocumented immigrants. Call me a liberal on this issue. On immigration, I do tend to be pretty liberal, but there's no such thing as an illegal human being. But I don't want to get sidetracked with that right now. We have... we can argue about that another day. Let's get into this a little bit. So again, this is from Reason.com. And they say here, and this was written by Eric Boehm, even if Trump's tariffs go away, the debilitating economic effects are likely to linger for years. It says here, a trade war doesn't have a body count, but that doesn't mean it can't put lives at risk. Just ask Judy Barham. In 1998, Bannon. In 1998, Bannon founded Cribs for Kids, a Pittsburgh-based nonprofit that provides small cribs to low-income parents who otherwise might not be able to afford one. Deaths from sudden infant death syndrome, where a baby seemingly inexplicably dies while sleeping, had been declining for years, thanks to then brand-new guidelines calling for infants to sleep alone on their back and in a crib. Anyone could follow the first two rules, but not everyone can afford a crib. In the 20 years since Bannon founded Cribs for Kids, the group has grown from a two-woman operation with a $2,500 budget to a national nonprofit that resold at cost more than 100,000 cribs last year for about $50 each. The number of babies dying from SIDS has continued to fall. The cribs arrive from China, packed 1,450 cribs to a container, and each time they are delivered, border tariffs take their toll. Quote, every time a container of cribs comes in, either to the port in New York or in California or wherever, unquote, the import broker who contracts with Bannon's nonprofit says, quote, They have to write a check for $50,000, Bannon explains. I'm sorry, for $5,000, Bannon explains. The Cribs are held hostage on the boat until the check is written, and those funds go directly to the U.S. Treasury. It's crazy that anyone would think China is paying for the tariffs, Bannon says. She has to immediately reimburse the import broker, or else the Cribs would never leave the docks. Now, there's more to this, but let's just stop there for a moment. So, in other words, what this is illustrating is, because Trump will tell you, like in our trade war with China, we'll forget Mexico for a moment, our ongoing trade war with China. Trump argues, China's paying for this. They're paying the price for this trade war that we've launched against them. It's like, no, we are, dummy. We are. And these businesses are. China's not paying for it. It doesn't work that way. Like, he doesn't understand. Like, Trump wants, I get it. He wants to project himself and present himself as this incredibly successful global businessman who understands all these complicated things like trade policy and tariffs and all that. But he doesn't. He doesn't. Who is making the argument? I mean, I'm sure that on Fox Business Channel, there's some Trump sycophant who goes on there and makes the argument that any of this makes sense. But seriously, you're very hard-pressed to find credible economists of any stripe. And I know there's many different economic theories. You've got supply-side economics on the right and, Keynesian-style economics on the left, and you got all these other different economic theories. You've got libertarians like Austrian economics and all this stuff. But seriously, find me a group of economists, more than one or two, who will say, oh yeah, this all makes sense. This all ends well. The only reason we're going through this exercise where people are actually being harmed by it, where Americans are actually being harmed by it, the only reason we're going through this is because President Tiny Hands wants to prove that he knows what he's doing and that previous presidents like Barack Obama, they were too wimpy to take on this issue of trade and tariffs, and we were getting screwed. And now a real man is president, and he's taken over, and he's going to put it to them, to everybody else, to China, to Mexico, and anybody else who dares question. It's absurd. That's the only reason we're going through this, is because of his little ego and his insecurities, and he has to prove himself. And he made all these comments. He made all these comments during the campaign. And remember labeling China a currency manipulator? Remember that one? And then he became president, and it's like, oh, that's really... Somebody actually managed to talk him out of that one. I don't know who did it. Whoever it is, they're probably a hero. Hello to Tom Massengale, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Archie says, oops, wrong key of the declination allowed to deteriorate this country economically. I don't understand that sentence. Can you imagine how many billions could have been saved had that wall been built years ago? Hard to measure. How many billions could have been saved on the wall itself because it'll cost more to build it now? Is that what you mean? I'm not sure if that's what you mean. I do love that last name, though, Frangutis. I'm not even kidding when I'm not trying to be funny about it. I really do love that last name. It reminds me of cheese. Let's see. And I love cheese. It sounds like, like you go to the deli, you get some Frangutis. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's your old pal, Fred.
Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple. How are you, sir?
Good. I was just listening earlier, and again, I can't help myself, but I want to check facts.
Yes.
First fact is, under Obama, the last 27 months of Obama, he created 6.1 million jobs. Under the first 27 months of Donald Trump, he created 5.4 million. That's from the BLS, Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Those numbers are there.
Those are government numbers, yeah.
Median income in 2009 versus what it was when Obama left in 2000, at the end of 2016, the beginning of 2017. It had grown 0.07 cents a month. Under Trump, in the last 27 months, it has grown 0.06. So wages have gone up slower, and he's created less jobs.
Right.
When people say, well, unemployment is the best it's ever been or whatever, it's like, what was it when he took office? Because he's actually moved it down 1%. Just that's all it's moved is 1%.
Sure. Yeah.
Under Obama, it moved 5.6.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best you can say is he's managed not to wreck everything, but
that's coming.
But he inherited an economy that was already very strong. Yeah, because I know,
and all the graphs show that. Every single graph shows that.
Oh yeah, the economy was steaming along when he took over. Yeah, I mean, people tend to look at that through a very partisan lens, and I think it's intensified with Trump because his acolytes just revere him so much, and they really want to believe that Barack Obama ruined America and we were living in some sort of post-apocalyptic hellscape economically and otherwise, and then on Inauguration Day, it all turned around. The great white hope became president.
but what I don't understand is how they continue to, misrepresent the facts that are just so much out there. I mean, these are not facts. I mean, everybody's seen the graph of the, unemployment at 10%. Now it's down at 3.8. We've all seen the graph. I mean, it's everywhere.
Oh, you mean?
And yet they'll say
you're talking about when Obama took over, where we were, versus when he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just.
I know.
It just never seems to amaze me that people seem to think that the things he's doing, they gave a tax cut to the rich that didn't really help anybody. He didn't use any of the money to put back in the economy like they said they were going to do.
Yeah,
they didn't do any of those things.
Some people are figuring that out now, but it doesn't affect how they feel about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm sad to say you're right, and it just seems that it's so obvious. Yet people will continue to do it, and people that listen to your show and go, "Oh, that guy Fred." But the guy Fred just gave you accurate facts that can be checked, and I can post them if they need to. And yet tomorrow they'll come on and say the same things that they said today.
Oh yeah. We live in a post-fact, post-truth world, Fred. It's whatever you want to believe is true is true. That's the world we live in now. I mean, I think it was already kind of that way, but I don't think. By the way, just to be clear, and I'm curious if you agree with me. I don't think it's that way because of Trump. I think Trump is a symptom of. I think it had already basically become that way to a degree. I think Trump was just in the right place at the right time to really capitalize on that and take advantage of it and kind of exploit it to its fullest potential. I think we were kind of already there.
Well, I call it the pet rock theory.
Yeah?
Yeah, because there was people who bought pet rocks.
Right. That is true.
I mean, that's just trying to be subtle about it, but you have a certain percentage of the people that for obvious reasons, and again, you've tried to say it in a nice way, why they didn't like Obama, but it still comes back to, okay, we still have facts. We have facts that we can prove, and once we establish, we go, okay, here's the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you have. Yet tomorrow, they will again come back and try to spew more of the things they already know to be not true. They already know they're not true. That's the most frustrating part. They already know these certain things are not true, but that doesn't stop them from continuously saying them.
Right? Yeah. It's all fake news. They just call it fake news. I mean, that's another thing that Trump. I mean, we already had the whole idea that. Republic. I mean, I remember this going back to when I was a kid in the Reagan era, where I would hear Republicans talk about the liberal media. You'd hear that phrase all the time, liberal media, and I think there's a large section of the media that is liberal, but they would talk like anytime anybody in the liberals says anything negative about any Republican at any level of office under any circumstance for any reason, oh, that's the liberal media again. And Trump just kind of capitalized on that, and he came up with fake news, kind of took that to a new level. Once again, exploiting something that was already in place. But Trump knows how to market himself. That's one thing he actually, I think, legitimately is good at. He knows how to market and brand Trump, and he just, he sees those opportunities. Although I still don't think he actually wanted to become president. I think that was just an accident. But yeah.
So what do you think that the real situation is? Since we can establish that we both probably agree that he didn't create racism, he didn't create the hate for the liberals, and then the hypocrisy of giving farmers, we hate socialists, but we're going to give farmers money, taxpayer money, so that they don't, because they're not making money now.
Right.
He screwed up the trade deal.
Right.
That's all the hypocrisy of it. That's to me, is the hardest part for me to deal with, because I'm a kind of guy that, that's one of the three words that I most dislike. It's hyperbole, hegemony, and hypocrisy. And
yeah.
And those are the three words that I think, destroy the country.
Well,
the people making up stuff, they're hyperbole. Well, I was just, he didn't lie 10,000 times. He was just kind of like, exaggerating.
Right.
He was
embellishing.
The definition of exaggerating.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the farmers. I mean, that's, to me, and you've probably heard me talk about it.
And you're a libertarian, so that's probably wholly against you.
Well, I've libertarian tendencies, but I'm sort of liberal/libertarian. But no, but I mean, with the farmers, I mean, that's the most maddening thing to me is, his trade war is destroying the farming sector. There's an area of the economy that's not doing well. Farmers' bankruptcies have skyrocketed. And then the answer is we're going to bail them out. So he creates his own problem with this trade war. He creates his own problem within the farming sector where he's destroying farming in this country. And then he solves he's like an arsonist who lights a house on fire and then says, "Don't worry, I brought a hose." And of course, the MAGA people see no problem with that. Okay, we're gonna bail out don't worry, Trump has a solution. We're gonna bail out the farmers. It's like, oh, I thought you guys on the right opposed bailouts. Oh, and by the way, if Trump hadn't created this problem, we wouldn't have to do this bailout. But no, they don't care. Their exalted hero
knows what he's doing. I think it's kind of remember, in a sense that, it's almost an idea that you can almost go with, all right? When unions say, look, we're going on strike to get better wages, so we all have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And as a collective, we have to support each other to make sure that we feed the families of the striking workers so that they can have better rights. So this is his argument. They're going to suffer now, but in the end, it's going to be a better deal.
Right.
Except the better deal turns out the Brazilians they grow soybeans too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Chinese are like, oh, okay, we don't want to buy the American soybeans, no problem.
Right.
We'll buy the ones in Brazil.
Right. Yeah.
And then we'll build their whole economy up, and then we won't need to deal with these dumb Americans who are going to be not making soybeans anymore because nobody's going to want to buy them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you're right. And plus, too, this whole prospect of a better deal, we're going to go through some pain for a better deal at the end, I think is probably very little consolation for someone who's already lost their livelihood, who's already lost their family farm.
Yeah, one season can do it. One season.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very fragile sector of the economy to begin with. That's why they do farm aid every year and things like that, to take care of these people, to keep them up and running. And the way Trump, it is so just, it's, I don't know if sociopathic is quite the right word, but probably. The way Trump will say, well, I'm asking farmers to do the patriotic thing and take this hit, do it for the country. You know, and it's like, screw you, buddy. You know, like, what? Why?
You mean the guy who doesn't pay taxes is telling you to do that?
Yeah, exactly. The guy who doesn't pay
that guy,
right? Right.
That's the guy who cheats on his taxes and does bank fraud and has insurance fraud.
Well, allegedly,
and is gone bankrupt so many times because he thinks you should take the patriotic hit.
Yes, exactly.
And the fact that he wants to give them money is no consolation to him because he doesn't pay taxes.
Right.
So it's not his money he's giving away.
Right.
It's the same thing with his charity. Remember, that's what he got in trouble for. He was getting money. People were putting money in his charity, and he was buying crap for himself.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's other people's money.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything to him.
That's
he's
right.
Not giving his money. He's not even feeding the friggin', special Secret Service guys at his golf course. He's charging you.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, so again, and all these, blue-collar-y kind of people who are like, this is America, we need to... Dude! The guy at the top isn't giving... At least Jimmy Carter put on a sweater. I mean, let's just keep everything in perspective. Jimmy Carter turned the frickin' heat down in the White House and put on a sweater.
Right.
What does Trump do? I'm going to the golf course this week, I'm gonna have cake and too bad for you guys.
Right.
Right. You know. I mean, you guys. I'm behind you all the way.
I know, but they fall for it. They fall for it. I mean,
they do. Well, pet rocks.
I mean, I remember like 6 months ago.
How many chia pets you got?
I remember 6 months ago reading this piece online about, I forget what site it was. These reporters were talking to these farmers out in the Midwest and talking about how, and of course, obviously the situation has gotten far worse. This was like 6 months ago. These reporters are talking to these farmers about, how do you feel about Trump's trade war? You say you voted for Trump. How do you feel about this now? And so forth. And these farmers are like, well, it's really unfortunate that I'm probably about to lose my livelihood and lose my life's work and my farm and everything, but I support him. He's my president, and he's obviously very successful, so he knows something we don't. So, and I'm just like, what is wrong with these people? Like the cognitive dissonance there. But that's why I always say, though, Fred, I think he has a great chance at winning re-election. And that's an example of why I think he'll win a second term. If you voted for Trump the first time, Trump can turn around, ruin your life, and you'll still support him. And these farmers are an example. I mean, they managed to find a couple to go on CNN and say, yeah, we're upset with Trump. But for the most part, if you voted for Trump in 2016, you're voting for him again in 2020. He can destroy you, and you'll still vote for him again. It's like I always say, it's the most stunning feat of mass hypnosis ever. Like, I mean, well, with maybe
continually voting against your own best interest.
Yes, which historically happens a lot. I realize, but this is an extreme. If you're a farmer and Donald Trump can ruin your life and you'll still support him, dude, who can Biden overcome that kind of loyalty that these people have for this guy? It's incredible. I don't know if anyone can.
But the question always again is there enough of them?
Right.
I mean, it was again the votes. If he's not getting more votes, if he gets the ones he got, that's fine. I don't see him growing that number. There's not like people that were like, well, I voted for Hillary, but, I really like Trump now. There's nobody there. That's not happening. I mean, either you stayed home, you voted for Jill, or you voted for some Gary, but you didn't vote for Trump.
Right.
Or you didn't vote for Hillary, because you hated Hillary. But Hillary's not running, and so you don't have that involved. You have a 2018 midterm with record Democratic outcomes. I mean, like, more people voted than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And So it's about getting the numbers out. It's about getting young people and people to register. But, that's the only way to win is to outnumber them.
Yeah. But there's one thing, though, Fred. What about all the households, that are essentially MAGA households where maybe they have people, kids who weren't old enough to vote in 2016 but will be old enough to vote in 2020, running around in their little red MAGA hats, like the Covington kids, I mean, those are, so there are going to be new voters for Trump in a lot of these households where they're raising,
but come on,
little
on the
Trumpers.
On the other end, I mean, there's those people who won't be voting anymore.
Right.
Or eating or anything anymore.
Right.
And they're the ones that were probably more likely to have voted for him to begin with.
Right.
In that demographic, Granny.
Yeah. Mm. That
right?
is
I mean,
true.
And we're not making more kids than we're losing. So
that's a good point.
And
that is
and
true.
And that demographic, you're probably right in the fact that if they were in a MAGA household, they will register to vote.
Right. Oh, yeah.
If they're wearing a MAGA hat, they're registered to vote.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But you're right.
But if somebody shoots up their school, they ain't going to be voting for him.
Might depend on what part of the country it's in. I mean,
yeah, Texas, right?
Their parents are still going to vote for him if they voted for him the first
time.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. In Houston, the Houston high school, right? That they had shot all those kids. We didn't hear a word about that.
Right.
And Texas was going to have some sort of, they were going to have meetings about it.
Right.
Remember, Abbott was going to have, panels on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They haven't changed any laws in Texas. They did in Florida, really quick, within a month.
Right.
They didn't do that in Texas.
No.
And Virginia may do the same thing. It may actually, from this shooting, may make some changes.
Yeah, maybe. Trump showed up looking like he had made a change, but I guess he went right back. Did you see Trump when he showed up in Virginia and he actually had a different hairstyle?
Oh, yeah.
That was really.
I know he came into Virginia to pray. He was praying for those people.
He showed up on that stage in the auditorium and he took his hat off and his hair was different. It was like slicked back. It was weird. I totally didn't recognize him for a second. I was like, wait, that's Trump? Like, he looked like a different guy. It was weird. But then his hair the next day was right back to the way it was. It was very odd. I wonder if that was like an experiment, just to see if
I think maybe he had his hat on. he had hat hair.
I don't think that's what it was. To me, it looked like there was something else going on there. It looked like he deliberately slicked it back. I actually thought it looked better. It looked less just ridiculous. But
well, you might wanted to check what time of day it was. And the one thing that you might have checked on that is, how long did he have to get ready? Because he has to watch, Fox News in the morning.
Right.
So if it was like before, during executive time normally, but he had to go stop at this church here to get prayed for first, he might have just got out of the shower.
Right, that's true.
Didn't have time to do his hair,
Right.
Because it takes him a long time to do his hair, and he might have had an early schedule.
By his
own...
own...
he had his hat on because he had it in his hand.
By his own admission. I mean, actually, that's one of the few things he's been honest about. He's very honest about his hair, and that it takes him a long time to do the whole thing, and what a complicated process it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
He could shave it.
He could. It might be time. Well,
It'd be much more efficient. That'd be a much more efficient way of doing things.
That's true. I don't think he's worried about it. He probably does it while he watches Fox and Friends. He's probably multitasking.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your show.
All right, Fred. Well, thank you for the call.
I just wanted to point out the facts say differently, and if people are going to, give credit where credit's due, then the numbers say that the credit goes to the man before Trump.
Right. Yeah, agreed. All right, Fred.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Talk
Always
to you
appreciate
later.
it. Bye-bye. All right, that was Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple. Let's say hello to, I see Jenny in the Facebook live chat. Oh, Archie had said, too many Americans are ostriches. Well, I agree with that. Absolutely. Hello to Tony Petrello in there. More Villalba. I apologize for butchering your name, Moro. says, awesome dude. And Alan Herbert joins us in the Facebook live chat. Hello, Alan from, wow, we've gone transcontinental. Alan is in Europe. All right, very nice, very nice. So, well, we're past the top of the hour, but I think we're just going to keep going. I don't really need to take a break. You're listening to Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. Streaming at WMNHradio.org and on Facebook on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And we see a lot of people in there today. Of course, you can always give us a call as well, 603-250-6007. 603-250-6007. So getting back to this story from Reason. So we're talking about the cribs and how, the tariffs drive up the cost of these cribs coming into the country. And it's the company that sells these cribs ends up having to write this massive check just to, get them off of the dock when they arrive. And that's the effect of the tariff. So it's Americans paying for this, right? So it says here, so cribs, which can be imported under several different classifications, were generally imported duty-free before last summer. Duty-free, in other words, tariff-free. Duty, just another word for tariff or tax. When President Donald Trump imposed a tariff of 10% on thousands of Chinese-made items with an estimated $250 billion annually. Now, the bill might be getting a whole lot bigger. Trump has threatened to raise the tariffs on the items hit with the 10% tariffs last summer to 25%. Additionally, billions of dollars of still untariffed goods could be slapped with a 25% tariff in the coming weeks. As a result, each future shipment of cribs will be subject to an import tax of about $15,000. Any shipments already on their way are exempt from the increase. And by the way, something that occurs to me, so, we talk a lot on the show about how, or I like to bring up how, I thought the Republican Party was the party of, free markets and didn't like tariffs. So the party of free trade, et cetera. And then Trump comes along and says, no, we're for tariffs now. We're protectionists now. And Republicans everywhere just say, okay, sure. I also thought that Republicans preferred low taxes on everybody. Low taxes on individuals, low taxes on small businesses, low taxes on corporations. Taxes are bad. Taxation is theft. That's more of a libertarian thing than a conservative thing. But you get what I'm saying, right? I thought Republicans were against taxes. Well, here's an example in this story from Reason. With these cribs, this is an example of how, with the increased tariffs because of the trade war, we end up with these additional taxes because tariffs are taxes. That's what, and like I said, Americans are the ones paying these. Hello to Stephen Philbrook, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Let's see. It says here, paying the tariff bill at the port sets off a chain reaction. As a nonprofit, Cribs for Kids doesn't have a profit margin that can be cut to cover these import taxes. There's no option except to pass along the tariff costs to buyers, American buyers, which are often nonprofits as well, operating on tight budgets with the generosity of donors. A $10,000 grant to buy cribs for low-income moms will be worth only $7,500 once a full-fledged tariffs kick in. The rest goes to the U.S. Treasury. Stefan says, yes, preach. Tariffs are taxes. Bannon says, quote, more importantly, that means 25% fewer babies will be given a safe sleeping environment, which will increase the number of deaths that are occurring because of SIDS and accidental suffocation in beds, unquote. It has now been a full year since President Trump embarked on his campaign to reshape global trade by imposing a series of tariffs, first on steel and aluminum, then on about $200 billion in Chinese-made goods. But despite his repeated promises that China would pay, Americans, from babies to beer drinkers to aluminum workers, are paying the price. By the way, something else that occurs to me. So Trump tries to sell you on this idea. And, of course, if you're a MAGA person, he's done so successfully because you believe whatever he says, right? Trump has tried to sell you on this idea. Don't worry about it. China's paying for it. China's paying for the tariffs in this trade war with China. When in fact, you know, you don't, I mean, look, I'm not even good at math, okay? But I understand these concepts well enough to know, no, Americans end up paying for this. We're paying for this. But he says, no, China's paying for it, or China's going to pay for it. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Trump saying that somebody else is going to pay for something that we end up paying for? Because I seem to recall, and Archie brought it up earlier in the Facebook live chat, Archie Frangudis. I love saying that last name, although it makes me hungry because it reminds me of cheese. But Archie brought up the wall. Well, Trump said over and over during the campaign, we're going to build a wall, and I'm going to make Mexico pay for the wall. Right? Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Don't worry about it. And then it turns out, no, actually, we're going to pay for it. Because our tax dollars are going to have to pay for it, right? Oh, but then it gets even better, because now Trump is threatening Mexico with a 10% tariff. But, as we've already established, who ends up paying for the tariffs? We pay for the tariffs. Americans pay for the tariffs because the tariffs end up being taxes on Americans. So, as far as the wall goes, he's double dipped on the Mexico thing, right? He told us Mexico was going to pay for the wall. Then he tells us, well, we're going to have to pay for it up front, but we'll recoup the money from Mexico. Well, how are we going to recoup the money from Mexico? Through tariffs? Well, we're the ones who end up paying for the tariffs. So there's actually a pattern here. Now, to be fair, part of the reason why he felt so free to say something so completely absurd, because if you're someone who actually believed that Mexico, Trump was somehow going to figure out a way to make Mexico pay for the border wall, well, I have a wall I'd like to sell you. By the way, it hasn't been built yet. Don't worry. I'm going to get Mexico to pay for it, and then I'll sell you the wall. But if you honestly believe that, look, the reason Trump felt so free to say something so ridiculous by any standard, I mean, it's just silly, right? Who actually believed that? Well, aside from a lot of people, but like I always say, my theory is Trump never expected to win the presidency. Because I always say, and by the way, not just about Trump, but about a lot of people, right? If you are a candidate for something and you have no expectation about actually winning, you can promise whatever crazy stuff you want to, and it doesn't matter. Because if you don't expect to win, you're operating under the assumption that you're never going to be held accountable for any of the promises that you made. Kind of hard to keep a promise if you're not, if you never end up with the responsibility of trying or having to try to keep the promise, right? So if you're a candidate for office, whether it's a presidency or anything else, you can promise anything. You can promise that we're going to wrap the moon in aluminum foil and it's going to be really pretty to look at night, even more so than it is now. It's going to be great. It's going to be huge. You know, you can promise whatever you want. Here, I'll make that promise right now. Why not? Yeah, when I'm president, the moon is going to be wrapped in aluminum foil. Isn't that great? Now, I know I'm never going to be president, so I don't care. I can make that promise. What are you going to do? Hold me you can't hold me to it. I'm never going to be president. So that's why Trump felt free to say such a ridiculous thing. And there's a cascading effect to that. So Trump made that ridiculous promise about Mexico paying for the wall. Trump made other promises about trade, you know, because he's the big successful business guy. So he understands everything about economics. He understands everything about trade. By the way, as we're finding out more and more, Trump isn't so successful. He's not the successful business guy that he likes to project himself and portray himself as. But also, too, those two things don't necessarily go together, being successful in business and understanding the economy. Because if they did, economists would all be rich. Right? Like, how many economists do you know who are, like, super wealthy? You know? Now, some wealthy people certainly understand certain elements of the economy, but Trump tried to portray himself as this guy who understands everything about the economy and everything about trade. By the way, his specialty, I thought, was real estate. So why does he know so much about global trade if his specialty was, putting his name on buildings and bankrupting casinos and somehow getting NBC to give him a show? based on this image that he had cultivated for himself, which he did very well, by the way. Again, like I always say, I will give him credit for that. Trump is very good at marketing and branding himself. But it is, I mean, it's an insane situation that we find ourselves in, where we have to go through this exercise of doing something that is harming people. And we can, laugh about it and whatnot. And I try to laugh because at some of the ridiculousness of it. But the part that is not funny is people are being harmed. Farmers, again, I mean, that is the most mind-boggling, frustrating thing about this. The farmers who are being harmed by the trade war, and now Trump goes to the farmers and say, I need you to take this hit out of patriotism, out of love of your country. As Fred said on the phone, the guy who doesn't pay any taxes goes to the farmers and tries to shame them and tries to guilt them into taking the hit, into losing their livelihoods and being okay with it. Look it up if you don't believe me. Look up the numbers on farms, on farms that have gone bankrupt since this madness began. And Trump tries to appeal to their patriotism. Oh, you got to do it for the good of the country. The guy who, as Fred pointed out, doesn't pay any taxes, apparently himself. And then he comes to you and me and says, well, we're going to bail out the farmers. The ones that we can still save. The ones who it's not too late. The ones that haven't gone bankrupt yet because of this absurdity. So now, those of us who do pay taxes, we have to bail them out just so Trump can say, look, I fixed it. I made everything okay. And we're going to win this trade war. Hello to Ed Murphy, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. I mean, this is like, and millions of people are fine with all of this. Millions of people are sitting around watching Fox News with their MAGA hats on and their little Rush Limbaugh coffee mugs that say mega dittos on them, and just fine with all of it. And it's not okay. I mean, the chaos of it all is interesting, but you can't just you can't just shrug it all off like when Skumpi called saying, well, the economy's great and people are working, and yeah, great. He's managed not to drive the economy into a ditch. Because, again, as Fred pointed out with his call, the economy was humming along when Trump took over. The economy was doing very well under Obama. Now, to be fair, and if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know this, I myself am always very skeptical of assigning too much credit and or blame to the chief executive for how the economy is doing. I've never bought into this. A lot of people, they buy into this. What does John Hopwood call it? The big man theory. He explained it once on the show. This idea. Hello to Chris Rose, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Very busy in there today. This idea that the president is, people like to imagine the president sort of sitting at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office and sort of controlling the different levers of the economy, right? And it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of factors involved. And some of it, by the way, is just the ebb and flow of how things go with the economy, right? The economy ebbs and flows. We have recessions, we have recoveries, we have recessions, we have recoveries. We're overdue for a recession. I'm not hoping for that. I'm not wishing for it. But we are. I mean, that's a fact. So I'm a little skeptical of saying, well, Obama did a great job on the economy. He clearly, some of the things that were done at the beginning of the Obama administration, at the end of the W administration, into the Obama administration, I think were necessary, and there's a lot of arguments about that to this day. Should we have bailed out the big banks and Wall Street and the auto industry? And I believe, yes, we should have, at least certainly in terms of the banks, because as we found out when the Great Depression happened, one thing you don't want is banks failing en masse, because that's, then the whole thing goes off a cliff. People call it the financial crash of late 2007, 2008. But really, that's a true financial crash I always thought that term was a little too severe. It was a very, I guess you could call it a crash, but, let's not send the whole thing over a cliff. So you have to bail out the banks. It sucks to do it, and it sucks that after it was done, people who did things that were provably illegal just got to go about their business. And that was something that I'm pissed off at Obama about to this very day, is Obama said, we're going to deal, first we got to get this train back on the track, and then, we're going to deal with some of these people who committed malfeasance and got us into this mess, some of these people on Wall Street, and then he just kind of forgot about it and expected all of us to just kind of forget about it, and a lot of us did forget about it, and okay, whatever, and then everything just keeps on rolling along, and I think there were a couple of people who went to jail, but there was a lot of illegal activity, particularly on Wall Street. And, that's okay. I guess we just shrug it off. And, everybody kind of goes about their business. Stefan says, OMG, you're getting me fired up. Thanks for exposing Trump with such passion. I'm really trying hard to find anything that he has done that has been good for all. Stefan, I'll give you something. I mean this seriously. I'm not even being sarcastic. Because I try to find... just to prove I can be fair, because I know there's people who listen to the show who thinks I just hate Trump. Credit where it's due. Criminal justice reform, him signing the First Step Act, I thought was a great thing. Van Jones, who worked on that, gave him, both Trump and Jared Kushner, great credit for doing that. It is literally a first step. It's called the First Step Act. So, there is much more that needs to be done in that vein. But I thought that was excellent. I give him great credit for that. I even will give him some credit, although I don't know where we stand now with North Korea, but I thought that his willingness to actually sit down with Kim Jong-un instead of just doing, the previous policy of many administrations was, just keep kicking the can down the road, and then finally you run out of road. I thought that Trump's policy of direct engagement was good. Again, haven't seen much in the area of follow-up that seems to be yielding anything positive, but I still feel better. I'd rather be talking than not talking. I'd rather have some relationship with North Korea than none at all, and I would rather North Korea not be threatening to nuke us. Of course, I also would rather Trump not be stoking that fire, and he hasn't been, and that's good. So I actually think, on balance, things are better now with North Korea than they were when Trump became president. So, or even a year into Trump's presidency. So I'll give him a little bit of credit there. Other than that, there's things that I wanted to give him credit for that I did give him credit for in the moment, but then he didn't follow through on. When he said we're going to get the hell out of Syria, I said, great. I don't know what happened. I know what happened. John Bolton and his very frightening mustache got in Trump's ear and said, no, can't do that. And Trump said, okay. Come on. That's probably what happened. So we're still there. And I thought we were going to finally get a troop drawdown in Afghanistan. Again, we're still there. I don't think anybody came home. So, there's some other things I'd like to give him credit for that, not a lot of follow through there. But there you go, Stephan. I hope I was able to give you something to be positive about. Criminal justice reform. That was a good. That first bill, like I said, it's called the First Step Act. There needs to be much more done in that vein. Because if you're a longtime listener, and Stephan, I know you are, you know that I'm very much opposed to the drug war. And, part of why we need criminal justice reform is so that we're not locking people up for decades for getting caught with a couple of ounces of cannabis in a state where it's still illegal. That kind of thing. All right, let's get back into this. Boy, this show is flying by. It's 5:30 already. Let me give you the number. 603-250-6007 is the number to call if you want to get in this last 30 minutes. 603-250-6007. Let's see. It has now been a full year. Again, this is from Reason.com. In dollar terms, the cost of the trade war is easy enough to calculate. the U.S. Treasury has collected about $18 billion in revenue from the tariffs Trump has imposed since June 1 of last year. Let me just remind everybody not to belabor the point, but if you're just tuning in, because some of you might say, hey, great, $18 billion, that's an $18 billion, that's 18 plus into the U.S. Treasury. Great, right? Remember who paid for that? We did, not China. We did. But there are unseen costs that won't show up on a ledger and losses that won't be fully realized for years to come, some of which will linger longer after Trump inks a trade deal with China or leaves office. The scope of the conflict is still expanding, sometimes in surprising ways. Last week, with little warning, Trump announced a plan to hit Mexican imports with new tariffs, potentially sinking a nascent trade deal still awaiting congressional approval, and signaling that the Trump administration plans to use tariffs not only in trade negotiations but to affect other policy changes too, like the border. We may never know the true cost of the trade war in terms of lost opportunities and unmade investments. Like any war, the longer it lasts, the greater the toll. Let's see. Then it gets into another example. Do we want to go through this or do I want to skip down? That's a bit lengthy. We're going to skip down. Let's see. It talks about aluminum tariffs and how those are affecting aluminum manufacturing. Let's get to the part about China. And this is on Reason.com, by the way, if you want to see the full article. And it's pretty interesting, but I don't want to run out of time on this and get too into the weeds on some of this. But let's talk about China. Okay, so before the trade war began, Trump famously promised that it would be good and easy to win. Yet as the conflict enters its second year, there's been a noticeable shift. In April, during an interview with Bloomberg News, Kevin Hassett, chairman of the White House's Council of Economic Advisors, compared the tariffs to a bitter pill that must be swallowed to improve the economy in the long run. And again, that's what Trump says to the farmers, right? It's a bitter pill, but take one for the team. America, in the long run, will all be better off, even though you won't have your farm anymore because you'll have gone belly up. Sorry. All right, so here's what Hassett said, quote, "We've had these very bad trade deals, and we are taking the medicine to improve them," unquote. A few weeks later, White House advisor Larry Kudlow bucked the official, and that was bucked with a B, just so everyone's clear. I don't want to get in trouble. Bucked the official presidential line and admitted, under questioning by Fox News' Chris Wallace, one of the few people at Fox who I think cares about journalism, that American consumers and businesses are indeed paying for the tariffs. Later in May, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican of Arkansas, a key Trump ally in Congress, compared the plight of farmers suffering from tariffs with the sacrifices made by American troops in real wars abroad. I think that is so deeply offensive. For two reasons. That is so deeply offensive to me, what Tom Cotton said. Well, actually, here, let me read the actual quote, and then I'll tell you what I find offensive about this. So this is what he said on CBS this morning on May 13th, quote, "These tariffs are going to end up hurting both Chinese and some Americans. I'll grant you that. There will be some sacrifices on the part of Americans, I grant you that, but I also would say that sacrifice is pretty minimal compared to the sacrifices that our soldiers make overseas that our fallen heroes that are laid to rest in Arlington make," unquote. Do I even need to explain why that's offensive? I mean, number one, dude, don't. I mean, on behalf of anyone who's lost anyone to war, don't ever do that. Don't ever try to make that kind of comparison, dude. Like, seriously. I know a guy like Tom Cotton, probably not the most self-aware person, probably doesn't think about his words when he says them, aside from he's got to get out whatever partisan talking points he needs to make. But don't do that. And the other reason it's offensive is, again, I think it's offensive to shame Americans into, losing their livelihoods for the quote-unquote good of the country, like with the farmers. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's your old pal, the Gold Star dad, Fred.
Yeah.
And the thing about what makes it truly offensive about what Tom Cotton says, he was out shilling his new book about Arlington.
Oh, he was. Wow.
Remember, he has this new Sacred Ground or whatever the name of his friggin' book is?
Yeah.
Right. So that's why he was on the show.
Oh.
So he was comparing the sacrifice of farmers because they're going to actually get some kind of, subsidy to people who are dying in Afghanistan because it was shilling for his new book. That's just keep everything in perspective.
Sociopathic is what it is. Wow. That is awful.
It's just no. Well, he's a corporate shill.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's paid by between AIPAC and the Koch brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep in mind the Koch brothers and the ACLU were the people who were the ones behind the First Step legislation. They were behind the criminal reform summit, which I was at in 2015. They've been on this forever. So it's the Koch brothers. So, of course, Trump isn't going to vote against the Koch brothers because they're the ones funding almost all the Republicans.
I never thought of that. That never even
thought I'd bring that up.
Oh, man, I'm trying to give Trump credit for something. Oh.
Well, no, he doesn't. Again, like I said before, and I was argued about, the fact that there was no voting, he didn't have a veto. I mean, if these guys were really concerned about, criminal reform, if Trump was really concerned about criminal reform, he wouldn't be still talking about the Central Park 5,
Right, that's true.
So, he couldn't vote against it. It was 80 some votes.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have a choice, so he might as well claim the victory. And of course, Van Jones being the diplomat because he doesn't want to piss Trump off and have him, against him. He's going to say he's going to give him credit. But the truth was, back in the day, that was the people that were originally doing it were Newt Gingrich, who I met numerous times, and actually have a picture of him at that summit with me.
Oh wow.
And Van Jones, and I have a selfie where Van Jones is actually holding my camera to take the selfie.
Oh, no kidding.
And that's where the woman from the real woman from the Black Orange is the New Black, she was actually there. And so all these, I've met all these people. But the thing is about that is they were working on it with the ACLU and Koch brothers, which was so unheard of. But
right.
But because it's about labor for the Koch brothers. They're not really concerned. It's about labor. It's about not having people. When you have a felon, or if you have to have people in prison, they're not in the prison business.
Right.
Keep that in mind. The Koch brothers aren't in the for-profit prison business.
Right.
Because the people that are in that are not all about this.
Right. Well, aren't the Kochs? Aren't the Kochs more sort of libertarian than conservative anyway?
Yes, they were the ones who funded the Cato.
Yeah.
Cato, and they were big in. Remember, they wanted to take over the Cato, and the Cato Institute wouldn't let them. But but they're against. But remember, they're they're anti-climate change people.
Right.
Because they're oil people.
But they're pro-immigration, right? Aren't they pro-immigration?
Yeah, but cheap labor, man.
Oh, I know. No,
that's why when anybody says anything about Donald Trump, it's like, oh, stop. The man had hundreds of frigging, undocumented people working at his golf courses.
Oh, of course.
For years.
Of course he did, yeah.
For years.
Of course.
They had built a whole town up in New Jersey. It was like a pipeline of these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that was New York Times, the Daily Beast. You can look it up. So,
yeah. No, I believe
the whole
it.
thing is, it's about, this is always about money for cheap labor.
Yes.
It's the capitalist way.
Well, that's why I've been saying for a long time that, the Republicans, even when they have an opportunity to do something like, during George W. Bush, we had 6 years of a Republican president and a Republican-controlled Congress. They could have done something about the border, but they always found an excuse not to. And I always say it's because the Republican Party, they pretend to be concerned about illegal immigration because that's what their base wants them to be concerned about it. But in reality, they find any excuse they can not to do something about a wall because the donors, who obviously are the ones really in charge, want that influx of cheap labor. So they pretend to be upset about illegal immigration when, in reality, they don't do anything about it because, they want to placate the donors who actually don't want anything done. And, of course, it allows them to continue to raise money on the issue, which is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, well, and again, this is Tyson Meats. This is, the meat packing plants, all the jobs that most people really wouldn't want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would go to minorities because white people don't really want to, shovel chicken guts all day long.
Right.
And
right.
So that's the issue here. But the facade is they're taking your jobs. It's like, no, you guys don't go to school, so you can't take one of the 6 million jobs that are high tech.
Right.
The guy coming in, the woman coming in with the baby over the border isn't taking your high tech job.
Right.
She's not.
Right.
I can just guarantee that she's not coming here. She can't even speak the language, no less. Take your job at AT&T.
Right.
And she's not taking your engineering job because you got a degree. That's not the person. They may come from India,
right,
Pakistan.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
But they're not the people that are coming from Guatemala that you're got to be concerned about.
Exactly.
Those people are going to be the people who are going to do all the labor, pay all the prices, and if you keep them illegal, then they have to pay taxes and never get any of the money back.
Right. That's
how that works. They get the Social Security number,
mm-hmm.
which, like the people that work for Trump said, they would help. They helped us get Social Security numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it is a not only is it jail time if you harbor harbor more than like a dozen undocumented people. It's jail time.
Right.
That's the law.
Yes.
And if you harbor one, it's not a big deal. But if you harbor over I think it's 12 or 14 people, it's 3 years minimum.
Okay.
And nobody went to jail at the Trump Foundation. I didn't see even the manager of the golf course get fired.
Right. No, of course not.
So
yeah.
So how can anybody go along with a man whose hypocrisy is so in your face that you believe that what he says, because it may be what you believe, but it's not what he believes.
I know. Yeah. They don't care.
Well, I'll let you get back to your show, but it was just so, oh my God.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the call, Fred. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, man. Bye-bye. All right, Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple. Let's see. Yeah, that was interesting what he was saying about Tom Cotton. I didn't realize that Cotton was shilling his book about Arlington when he made those comments. Let's see. So again, this is from Reason.com. The shift in rhetoric seems to mirror a shift in strategy. The lifting of the steel and aluminum tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico means Trump might be less likely to pursue obviously counterproductive tactics, and that he might be recognizing the value of not going it alone. But the shift toward China portends a protracted, painful trade war between the world's two biggest economies. That could happen because the real friction between the U.S. and China is not, no matter how many times the president talks about the trade deficit, about it. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me start that over. That could happen because the real friction between the U.S. and China is not, no matter how many times Trump talks about it, the trade deficit. It's really about two bigger things. China's abuse of international rules governing the intellectual property of foreign businesses operating there, which, by the way, is legitimately an enormous problem. I mean, that's, they're pretty shameless about just theft of intellectual property. They have no compunction about it, and they act with impunity. Let's see. And the Chinese government's desire to achieve technological parity or superiority to the U.S. Those issues lurked in the background during trade talks that began last year and ended in mid-May without a deal. It's still possible a deal could be reached in the coming months. American companies could shift supply chains to countries like Vietnam, as Trump has urged. China could respond by making concessions on trade, but what if that doesn't work? Dan Eichenson, director of the Center for Trade Policy Studies at the Cato Institute. Oh, Fred mentioned the Cato Institute. He said, quote, "You could see this bifurcation of the global economy, one set of standards led by the Chinese and one set of standards led by the United States. That is going to be very difficult to untangle," unquote. The split is already happening. As part of the latest hit at China, the Trump administration has effectively blacklisted Chinese telecommunications firm Huawei from doing business in the U.S. It's a potential bargaining chip for an eventual trade deal, but if China and America settle into a long-term stalemate, Eikenson says, the world could end up divided between a Chinese sphere of influence where Huawei tech prevails and one where American companies like Google hold sway. And Eikenson said, quote, "The costs of this process are going to continue to manifest themselves for a while and probably long after any agreement is reached," unquote. In the weeks after Trump lifted steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada and Mexico, a move that was intended to smooth the congressional passage of the USMCA, it looked like he might be narrowing the focus of the trade conflict to China. But the president remained angry about what he sees as Mexican indifference toward migrant caravans crossing into the U.S. from Central America. Yeah, so scary caravans. They're coming to murder us all. At the end of May, he ordered... I was being sarcastic for anyone who isn't clear, so we all know. At the end of May, he ordered new tariffs on all Mexican imports to begin the second week of June. The initial 5% levies will increase to 25%. I didn't know that. I heard him say 10% a couple times. I didn't know he was threatening to go to 25. 25% between June and October, unless the Mexican government acquiesces to Trump's yet unstated demands. Yeah, that part's weird, too. Like, what is it that he wants Mexico to do exactly? He hasn't really said. That's kind of weird. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's Jean-Claude Hopwood.
Jean-Claude Hopwood?
Hopwood.
Hopwood?
The man who gave you the V for Victory sign.
Oh,
a
yes.
few minutes ago.
I saw that. V for Victory. Yes, I saw you through the... folks can't see, but the door to the radio station here, there's a window, so I can see... I did see someone out there. Although, the look on your face when you made that sign at me, it didn't look like you meant V for Victory. It looked like you meant something else.
C'est si bon?
Oui, or something.
Hey, before I drive everybody crazy with my horrible France accent.
Yes.
I was wondering if you would tell your viewers that Dr. Jeff Cassell will be on my show, the television. For the life of me, Matt, because I got hit on the test. I do not have to say tonight anymore in en français.
And your accent is slowly fading away. It must be...
Yeah, do you know how to say tonight en français, Matteo? For the life of me, I can't remember.
Wow, now your accent's gone completely. Well, you've obviously spent some time here in America. Yes.
Oh, the knock on my head is worn off.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, it's John Hopwood. Yeah, so Dr. Jeff Cassell will be on Ward 13 with John Hopwood tonight at 7 p.m. on Channel 23. You can watch that online at manchestertv.org.
Not at 7. Jeff, what's his name? Is it? Because I got two Jeffs, Jeff Cassell and Jeff O'Connor. You know, well, he will be on the first half hour or so.
Who's Jeff O'Connor?
The obnoxious guy that's always talking about education.
Oh, Jim O'Connell. I think his name's O'Connell.
Yeah, let me knock my head against my steering wheel.
Oh.
Whoa, Jim O'Connell will be on.
Oh, great. That's all it takes to fix you?
Jeff Cassell.
Did you learn that at the VA?
Going to offer his... None of that snarky back talk from you, Yeti.
Oh, my goodness.
Jeff Cassell is going to share with my audience and the world his theory that Trump supporters share the characteristics of members of a religious cult. the cult religiosity. Uh-oh. I better go now. I need another knock on the head.
Oh, my goodness. All right, John. There you go. So Dr. Jeff Cassell will be on Ward 13 with John Hopwood tonight at 7 p.m. You can watch that if you're locally here in Manchester on Channel 23, if you have the cable. And you can also watch it online at manchestertv.org. We're almost out of time, but let's see. I'm going to kind of skip down here. All right, so let's touch on this quickly. So again, this is a tax. Judy Bannon, no relation to Steve Bannon, by the way, at least as far as I know. Judy Bannon has just returned from 2 days in D.C., where she crisscrossed the Capitol building to plead her case with lawmakers from both parties. She tells them, quote, "This is a tax. This is a blatant tax on a nonprofit organization that's devoting its time to getting the infant mortality rate down in this country," unquote. In fact, it's a tax on everyone. If Trump follows through with his threats to hit all Mexican imports with a 5% tax, the overall cost of the trade war will exceed the cost of the 1993 tax hike signed by then-President Bill Clinton when measured as a percentage of gross domestic product, GDP. If he escalates things further and hits all Chinese and Mexican imports with 25% tariffs, which he has threatened to do, it would be the biggest tax increase on Americans since the Lyndon B. Johnson administration. If we reach that point, the cost of the trade war will have canceled out the benefits of the 2017 tax cuts for all but the highest earning Americans, according to a new analysis from the Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan tax policy center. Tariffs are regressive taxes that hit low and middle income earners the hardest. But now, the less politically palatable tariffs on steel and aluminum imports have been partially lifted. Bannon's not sure that there's much hope for congressional relief. And that's, as we often discuss, Republicans in Congress, for the most part, when it comes to this issue, some of them do push back. Like I said, Chuck Grassley from Iowa, he pushes back on this. But eventually they roll over, not because they're afraid of Trump, but because they're afraid of Trump's base. If you want to win re-election, you have to do what Trump's base wants you to do. It's Trump's party now. That's a fact. And look at the sway that Trump holds on those who revere him. If Trump tells you you're a protectionist now and you love tariffs, that's it. You're a protectionist now. You love tariffs. You no longer are concerned with free market economics, at least that aspect of it. That's why Justin Amash, we've been talking about Justin Amash. His name has been in the news lately because he's the first Republican in Congress to stand up and say that he supports impeachment because he says yes. The president clearly, he says, I've read the full Mueller report, and the president clearly has committed 11 counts of obstruction of justice. That's why Justin Amash's political career is over. Unless he can find some success in the Libertarian Party, he's done. I mean, he committed political suicide doing what he's done. I remember the day that it happened, and he made that announcement, and some of these talking heads on, on MSNBC and CNN, not on Fox, but on MSNBC and CNN, breathlessly talking about, could this be the beginning? Is this the beginning of a domino effect? Will other Republicans follow suit? It's like, no, of course not. Frankly, they would be foolish to, in terms of their own political careers. Justin Amash, God bless him. He's sticking up for for what he believes, but he committed political suicide. My assumption is he probably, Fred says he got a standing ovation in his town hall. I did see that, Fred. Yeah, but I think most of those people were probably, I think a lot of them were Democrats and libertarians who don't like Trump, who were there to support him. I really doubt if there were many actual Republicans in that town hall. I mean, I'm sure there were some. I don't mean, like when I say that, obviously there are some Republicans who don't like Trump. I think they're like unicorns. You have to really, really search to find them. But, yeah, he got a standing ovation, but he also got some people there who were very angry with him. So, no, Amash is done. I mean, I have to believe that either his principles are so important to him that he really did put principle ahead of his political career and said, I have to do this. Or maybe he had already decided that he was kind of tired of the whole thing and wanted to return to the private sector. But he is on his way to the private sector. He will be primaried. They've already found someone to primary him when it's time for him to run for re-election if he decides to bother, and that individual will be the new Republican nominee. I don't remember who it is. It's some state senator. And Amash will be done. I mean, he's, like I said, I give him all the credit in the world. He's got some cojones, some testicles, to use the Greek term, but he is done. He's absolutely done. We're just about out of time. So, again, this article, if you want to read the whole thing, it is up at reason.com, which is a great site. I think it's a great site. It is a libertarian-esque site, but I suggest checking it out. I have some other articles on this, too, that I kind of had ready to go, but we just ran out of time. It's a big subject, and, we could probably make the whole show about it every day if we wanted to, because there's so much to talk about. But we got to get out of here. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Fred, for calling in today. Thank you to everybody in the Facebook live chat. And if you miss any part of today's show, it will be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, please. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, The Morning Show with Peter White, which you can hear weekdays 7 to 9 a.m. here on WMNH, with a replay immediately before this show, weekdays 2 to 4 p.m. And Skumpi did call earlier, Jeff Skumpi Lorenz, and he did say he will be on The Morning Show tomorrow. He promised it, so he has to deliver. No calling in sick, Skumpi. You've got to be there. No, he will be there. So I believe that he will be. So be sure to tune in for that. And all the shows here at WMNH do get archived at WMNHradio.org. If you happen to miss them live, I'm surprised we didn't hear from Easy G today. But yeah, he might be taking a break. I don't think he liked my goldenrod jingle. But we'll still play his theme song at the end of the show. All right, that's it for now. I got to get out of here. Bye, everybody.
Your time